So we will now take a look at SDU1 in a situation where we do not get shots from the targets at all. We shoot and nothing is happening. We can connect Orion and run a system check and we don't find any targets at all. And we will have to find out where is the problem. So the issue might be in the SDU. It might be in the cable between the firing line and the target line. It could be in the power supply, not very likely, it's just led straight through, but it can happen. Or it might be the target server or even connecting cables. So we will now take a look at how to proceed to find out where this issue is appearing. So first step is to do a function test of the SDU. And we know from the schematic internally that we have a constant current loop here. And if that constant current loop is closed, the corresponding signal LED should be off. So we can make a very short loop, to put it like that, by basically making a short circuit on the signal connector between point 1 and 2. In this way we are only testing the SDU. We have no signal cable or target servers or anything in the system. This is the only thing we have in our loop, and we will see if the signal LED is going to go off or not. So I have now made a short circuit between point 1 and 2 in the connector on the signal line. Be careful, use 1 and 2, not 3 or ground. 1 and 2 is the points to be short-circuited. And if the SDU is okay, the corresponding signal LED should go off. And we can see now that if we remove the short circuit, it's on again. So this is an indication, it's not proof, but it's an indication that the SDU is okay. So in this case, we know if we should find a new SDU, send it to repair, or if we can try to use it. Now the LED is behaving as I expected to do, so we can continue. And my next step then will be to include the signal cable going down to the target line in the test. So that's next. Okay, so I have connected the SDU to the signal cable, and I have left the signal cable in the other end open. So the first check now is actually to see that the signal LED is on. It has to be on because we have an open connector here. The current loop is broken. If the signal LED would be off by just connecting the signal cable, this means that we have a short circuit on the signal cable somewhere. So in this case we see that the signal cable, at least it doesn't have any short circuit. So to check the function for conductivity, we will actually do the same test as with the connector at the SDU directly, because on the connection point here we have the same connector. It's level 1, 2, 3 and ground. And again we are going to insert a short circuit between point 1 and 2. Then we are introducing the cable between the target line and firing line to the test we did initially just with the SDU. Okay, so I have connected the pin between 1 and 2, short circuiting it, making the current loop return from this point through the signal cable. And if the LED is now off, we know that we have conductivity also through the signal line. If the LED would still be on now, we would have the current loop would not be completed. It has to be broken connection somewhere along the line. So we have, at this point, we know that the SDU is okay, and we know that the signal line down to the target line is okay. So the next step now will be to introduce the power supply for the targets. So I have now introduced the power supply to the loop. So the power supply is connected to the connection box by the target line. The signal is going to pass through here if it's okay, and then we have an open connector in the end, the cable going into the first target, the target server. Again, this means that we have an open current loop, and if all the parts previously now is okay, we should have a light on the signal B LED, because the current loop is open. If the LED would be off, it would most probably mean that we have a short in the power supply, which is basically closing the current loop. So to check for conductivity through the power supply, we again make a short circuit between point 1 and 2 in the cable going into the target server. We have introduced the jumper, the short circuit. So this should close the current loop through the TPU, through the connection point at the target line, through the cable up to the firing line and into the SDU. And at this point we see that LED is off again. So this should mean that all the introduced parts are okay. You can even double check that by removing the short circuit again and see that the LED is getting on. Of course, this is easier for me now when I have the SDU close to the targets, but with one person by the targets and another one at the firing line by phone link, it should be possible to do the same. Okay, so the next and final thing to do now is to introduce the target server. So now the target server is connected, the first target in the line. It's connected to the target power unit, which is again connected to the connection box at the target line, signal cable, firing line, SDU. But the target is not powered, and when the target is not powered, the target line, the power supply is turned off. The target server is keeping the current loop open if it's okay. So with the powered off target, we should have a light in the SDU signal LED. And in the same way, we can actually, if we power on the targets, we will hear the click now. We can see that the LED is getting off, if the target server is okay. If we do have a problem with the target server, it might be that the light on the signal LED on the SDU would go off even if the target server is off, or it will never turn off even if it is powered. So at this walkthrough which we did now, all the units were working, but I think that by doing this step by step, most cases would actually be resolved. You should find out which unit has the problem or where the problem is occurring.